news, updates, and interviews. The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik right, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team WSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-hosts always. We've got Evan, we've got Logan, we've got Dan, we've got Jimmy on the ones and twos, Marissa in the background. We've got a jam-packed show, a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff to get into. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Yeah, this was a long week. Bengals lost to the Los Angeles Chargers in a game in which we all didn't expect that to be the case. We thought that this was going to be a turning point for the Bengals season. It's the one that got away. It's the one that got away. And I feel like there are so many games to point to for this season where you look at it, you say for the Bengals, they were in spots like these where they were so close. They felt like they had everything in front of them and they wind up falling short. I'll tell you this. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff during this show. I just want to be clear. Me and my team will continue to obviously cover the Bengals, the highlights, the lowlights, and everything in between. You know, we'll be talking about stuff for the draft. We're talking about things via free agency. But one thing we'll always try to do, honestly, is cover this team and speak factually. Hopefully, the guys on the show, hopefully everybody that's part of my company, TWSN, feels like, you know, you get the opportunity to speak your mind and say what it is that you want to without having to worry about the repercussions of what people might have to say or people might think. TWSN is a place where you can sort of give your opinion. And part of the reason why I was so excited about embarking on this journey with State of the Jungle was because to give a different flavor, right? Talk about all the ins and outs. I feel like on this show, you get everything. And it's been a while since I've said it, so let me just reiterate it again. I feel like you get the insider perspective, obviously, as well as my passionate opinion. You get Evan, the analytical side. You get Logan getting the coach's perspective, and you get Daniel as well, who's obviously a Bengals fan, and he, he's covering the team based on how he sees it. He grew up as a sports fan that was, was very fortunate of watching the New England Patriots growing up, so he knows what a lot of winning looks like, if that makes sense. I bring this up not to, I guess divert the conversation, but I'm more so bringing it up to tell you guys get a different taste on this show. You get differences of opinions, but one thing we can all agree on is we want what's best for this team. So during today's show, you might hear differences of opinions. You might have a different of opinion when it comes to our take on things. But just know, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. The reason why I bring this up, guys, and even my co-host didn't know I was going to start the show today with this. And I didn't even expect that myself to. It feels like there's a lot of animosity on Twitter right now. It's a lot of anger amongst the fan base right now, and they are looking for someone to blame. They're looking for someone to place that anger on. And I just want to let people know it's okay to have differences of opinions. Okay? It's okay for people to have their own way of maybe fixing the team or going about things. It's okay if people want to be the biggest super fans and don't want to say a bad word about the Bengals. That's fine. But we all want the same thing. And I think that's where we come in, when I have that new media, right? TWSN wrapped across my chest on all the merch we wear and stuff like that. I just don't like the temperature right now amongst the fan base. But this is what happens when the standard has been raised. This is what happens when the standard's been raised. And what I mean by that is it's very clear that the Bengals fan base expected something special this year. They expected this team to be right in the thick of the playoff hunt, fighting for a 1 seed, doing everything that we expected. Bengals fans, you tell them, you ask them, they expected Joe Burrow to have a comeback season like this. They expected Jamar Chase to be in contention for Triple Crown. They expected Trey Hendrickson, right, to be league leader in sack. But what they did not expect was the Bengals to be 4-7. And that's a reality that we all have to face. That's a reality that we are facing right now. So again, we're going to talk things through on the show, right? I'm just going to ask that you guys, have an open mind when we are talking this thing through. I'm talking about those of you in the chat. We'll try to have an open mind. We'll try to talk with you guys through our opinions of things. And like I said, we'll try to make some sense of this damn season, because I'll be honest with you, I'm letting these guys talk a lot right now, which is why I'm opening with this huge monologue. This shit sucks. This is not what we expected. That's just the best way I could put it. This shit is terrible. This is awful. And I'll continue to use my platform to push for better. I will not settle for mediocrity. I will push for changes. I will push for the organization to do more, because guess what? I think the best fans in the NFL deserve it. I think Cincinnati deserves it. Evan, I've said a lot there. Logan, I said a lot there. Dana, I said a lot there. But I think there's things that need to be said, honestly. But I want to get your overall thoughts on that game that took place, and if there's anything that you want to add on about that. What was yours, my brother?
Yeah, the game, man. Like everybody says, tough start. Put yourself in a hell of a hole. Had a lot of people questioning the willpower and the fight of this team. Credit to them for straightening things out a little bit and fighting their way back in. That's the tough part about kind of the margin for victory and the margin for error, is if you kind of give up a quarter and a half and you got to spend the last 2.5 trying to figure out how you're going to battle back into it. Like it's really, really tough to do. You have to be perfect. And unfortunately, everybody, including Joe Burrow, like this is something important, I think, is to make sure that we're saying, hey, this is not squarely on any individual. Everybody shares blame in a failure this catastrophic. This is front office failing to build a competitive roster and add depth around their key players. This is coaching staff failing to develop some of their young draft picks and younger guys, and also to successfully scout other pros and feel like they can find guys who can fit their systems, who can come in and affect things in a positive manner and give them what they need to replace guys who are leaving, whether that's Jesse Bates or whether that's DJ Reader or so on. And they have not done that successfully. The overall play calling has been, yes, fine at times for Zach Taylor and fine at times for Lou Anarumo, but I think on top of the players failing a lot of times in effort plays and execution, coaches also have done that or have kind of shrank in the moment, especially on high leverage situations. I feel like that's where it kind of comes through, especially. Not so much specific about the Chargers game. Obviously, it's disappointing, and it brings a lot of questions about where you go from here and how you improve, because I think part of the reason people are seeking blame so hard is because they're trying to figure out where to channel this frustration so they can go, if we just fix this, okay, that's the thing that's wrong. We fix it, things get better, right? And unfortunately, I don't think it's that neat and it's that clean. And we'll dive into all these individual aspects of coaching staff, position coaches, players, execution, play call, etc. Because all of it, like I said, has some blame to go with it. But I do want to make this point because it's going to seem like we're being nitpicky sometimes, right? When I say Zach Taylor has good design sometimes and has, overall a fairly competent offense that's scoring 25, 20, 30 points pretty regularly now, right? So Zach Taylor must be good, right? And so when we're going, this play call was bad and this fourth down decision was bad, it's going to feel like we're being very nitpicky, right? It is going to feel that way because, like we talked about, with the margin of error being so low, with football being a game of inches, everything is inherently a difference of small percentages. It's going to feel like we're being nitpicky because when you're talking about areas where you lose the game, we're talking about being within those inches. So when we talk about, hey, for example, Lane Johnson Tristan Wirfs tied for first in pass block efficiency. That's just pressures per snap out of 100%, right? 99% pass block efficiency is first overall. If you are a bottom 10 tackle, if you are at mark 50 out of the 60 some odd tackles that start, then you are at 96%. 3% difference is the difference between being the best tackle and being the 50th best tackle. So again, when we're talking about these margins, it might seem unfair when we're like, hey, Cam Taylor-Britt, you're great for 30 plays, but when you give up 10 or 15 bad plays, it doesn't matter that you're good for 2/3 of the plays out there because those other third really, really hurt. When we talk about, yes, Zach Taylor, you went for it on 4th down in this one game where you were being very aggressive when everything was on the line. But the problem is your season shouldn't be on the line because you didn't go for it previously. And when you play with leads, you get conservative and start running the ball, or you get scared to go for 4th down because one time you went for it and something bad happened. So now you won't do it again the rest of the game. Like, you can't play that way and you can't operate that way. So again, it's going to seem like we're being unfair, we're being nitpicky, but this is coming from a place of not hatred, not frustration to a degree, but just because we care about the team and we want them to be successful. So again, picking at the margins, yes, but that's where victory is found, is in those margins. So we're going to be talking a lot about those and how they've kind of managed to cede a lot of ground to other teams in that way and what they can do to kind of reclaim that a little bit.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think that's going to be a lot of what I was going to say. And that's a lot of what we've been echoing all year long. This team has continued and continued and continued to amaze us, to surprise us with new ways to lose football games, or to just put them in a worse situation than they really need to be in. And obviously, a lot of people want to talk about the defense or the offensive line. Yes, there's so many things wrong with both of those things, but everybody has shared the blame this year. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Yes, we want to focus on those things because, like Evan said, we want to have an answer. We want to feel like the answer is right in front of us. But the reality of it is, it's going to be messing with a lot of things. Maybe some things a lot. Maybe something's just one thing or one little tweak here or just a little adjustment. Some things are closer, some things are farther away. But at the end of the day, things have to be different. We can't just keep going in and trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's going to get you nowhere but sitting at home doing nothing because you're not going to have a job to do. Like, at the end of the day, you have to find ways to win football games. You have to find ways to develop players. You have to find ways to make people happy in your organization. And that's a lot of things that the Bengals aren't really doing right now. And again, that's not one person's fault. That's not two people's fault. It's everybody's fault. It's a collective effort. It's a little bit, I don't want to say it's a new territory for them, but it's an awkward territory to be in because we have so many good players, like Malik alluded to at the beginning. We have an MVP quarterback. We have a triple crown. We have the sack leader. There's so many things pointing to you why you should be good, why you should be good, why we should be one of the best teams in the NFL. But we're a 4-7 football team. That's what you are at the end of the day. Yes, obviously we can all talk about here. Yes, we're better than this. We're better than this. We're better than this. It doesn't matter. You're 4-7. That's the only thing that ever matters in this situation. There's so many holes to fill. There's so many things that need to happen. Things just have to. I don't even say everybody can say things are going to start going your way a little bit more here and there. It might not. Like, teams are continuously finding ways to win. The Bengals continue to find ways to lose. That can come down to a number of things: coaching, play calling, execution, just throughout the week practices. Beginning of the year, we talked all about how the offseason has been terrible. We continue to start out slow. What did we do? We came out, we started out slow again. And then we kind of looked like we were getting back. We almost beat the Chiefs. Even though we lost to Washington at the time, we didn't really expect that. Washington has ended up to be a good football team, but we were firing on all cylinders on offense. We're like, okay, we're right there. And then you continue to score 40 points and lose football games, 30 points and lose football games. Joe continued to have to play at an unreal level to get a win. There's just so many things wrong right now. And thankfully, we have 3 people covering up a lot of the bad. Because if it wasn't for one of those people, the holes would be so much more obvious than what they are. And they're already, frankly, pretty obvious. And that's just if one of those 3 people go down. There's so many things that need to change, be altered within how the Bengals do things on the field, off the field, in the front office, outside of the office. And we just got to hopefully we see them.
Daniel.
I think just to add on to that, they both said a lot. The part that I will analyze and the part that I find the most fascinating is, and this is kind of our job, and this is what I like looking and say, hey, our job is to analyze what the players are saying. Our job is to analyze what is going on in that locker room, and something that's, been going on. And I think we have to address, I think this should be at the focal point, is what are the feelings on the sideline? What are the feelings of Jamar Chase? That's the main thing I'm going to point to is, hey, that interaction of Jamar Chase talking to the reporter, saying, what he said about Zach, and then Zach responding. I thought Zach's response was fine. Him saying, oh, that was an emotional response. I just think that by us analyzing that, that's going to show where the rest of the season's going to go, right? We can talk all about, will Zach Taylor get fired? Should he? Who should be the next guy? And I think that's a valuable part of the conversation. But the important part is, what does this locker room need? What does Joe Burrow need? What does Jamar Chase need? What does this team need to succeed? And for anybody's personal ties, whether they like Zach Taylor, whether they like the organization, my thought process and what we talked about after the show is they are 4-7. And right now it looks bad. It could get a lot worse. And that's the part where, for whatever anybody wants to say, if Jamar Chase starts getting frustrated, if Joe Burrow keeps getting frustrated, if they go lose that game out of the bye week, and once again, I hope they win against the Steelers, but that's a tough-ass game. Steelers come into Cincinnati. So all in all, I think that that's where my mind goes, is saying, hey, Joe Burrow walking off the field, that dude was distraught. They are lost right now. And our job and their job, they got to find an answer quick. So
I think part of the frustration that Malik talked about, where it seems like fans and even the players, like Daniel talked about, are feeling really frustrated. And I thought Logan brought up a good point when he mentioned the comments that Zach Taylor was making after the game, where he's saying everything is fine. We're a good team. We can be special. We don't need to make any changes in the bye week. Like, that's the frustrating part, because everyone can tell how fucking fake and disingenuous that is. That is coach speak. And yes, coach speak absolutely has its place. Zach Taylor cannot sit up there and say everything is fucked. This team is fucked. The roster's fucked. We're injured like crazy. Everything sucks. And we are dealt a really bad hand, and we're really playing below expectation. But there's a lot of room between that and everything is fine. No, you're crazy. Like, everyone's feeling gaslit right now. And they're like, the Will Ferrell meme from Zoolander. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, because we're all watching this on Sunday. We're watching the repeated slow starts to games, the repeated slow starts to seasons, the constantly looking soft in every single game and getting your ass kicked in the trenches, whether that's offense or defense, no matter what resources you put in there. Like, it's just, that's the frustrating part, is you can't even look us square in the face and be real. Like, what are all these moments that resonate with players, with people, with fans, with organizations? What helps build that good culture that we seem to have lost, that seems to have degraded a little bit? Being real, honest. How many times is it Sean McVay, Dan Campbell having real human moments in front of the microphone and saying, yes, you can say, hey, we have not been good enough. We have a higher standard for ourselves, and everyone's spot is going to be up for evaluation right now, players and coaches alike, because we have to earn our spots. We have to show that we deserve the opportunity that we have here. That is a motivating message to your players, to your coaches. That is acknowledging that you have a problem. Imagine a manager of a company just bleeding money, revenue absolutely gone, expenses way up. Employees are all here and they're going to be fired, and they're saying, sir, everything's going wrong. What do we do? How do we fix this? And he goes, no, it's fine. And shareholders are calling and going, the company's going under. Stock prices are tanking. No, it's fine. Everything's fine. Guys. We're a good company. We're a special team over here. We're a family, all right? We've got good culture. Like, no one's buying that. There is a time for that. This is not it. This is time to be real with us. This is time to be real with yourself. This is time to be real with your players. This is time to be real with the other coaches. I know they're saying a lot of this stuff behind closed doors, but it's clearly coming out to the players now. Multiple players are extremely frustrated. It's coming out in body language and comments after, pre, post, whatever. This is all coming out. You got to be real. You got to look the problem square in the face, and you cannot keep hiding from this and giving the coach speak nonchalant bullshit. Because there's a time and place for that. Now is not it.
Yeah, I think that the whole, I think we've talked about it a little bit with Zach Taylor, maybe at the beginning of the year. Like, he does a lot of things fine. He says a lot of things fine, but there's nothing that like truly pisses people off more than when, like I've been saying, this stuff is going on and you keep getting fed the same answers. Like that should, like, regardless of what's going on or what the situation is, just like if I'm pissed off about whatever it is, life, work, whatever, and you're gonna keep giving me that answer, it's just gonna piss me off more.
Right.
You know, that might not be the most fair thing in the world. That's a truth to it. And I think that's kind of that territory we're starting to have to walk the fine line on. And like Daniel said earlier, it could get ugly.
And that's the thing where screw us for a second. It's okay. Like, let's talk about Bill Belichick, right? Bill Belichick in the Patriots dynasty, he gave coach speak and it worked because the players bought in. And you rarely, when they were winning, nobody spoke out and said, oh, well, Bill, blah, blah, blah. The fact that the players are speaking should speak volumes. And that's where, if we want to talk about Zach Taylor fixing or saving his job, that's where it is. Because at this point, the coach speak, it's fine if you're winning, but it's clear the players aren't resonating with it. Something's got to change. And I think that's something clearly we can all circle and say, hey, that's a serious problem. And maybe we don't know what the solution is, but that's the problem right there. You got players speaking out, but you're on your press conference saying it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. So,
one thing I want to touch on really quickly, and this is, I guess this can kind of go to our next topic, which is Bengals bye-week assessment. Let's switch to that. There's a thought process among the fan base, at least some, and it's like the Bengals won't make changes. I come from a place where won't, can't is not in my vocabulary. I just don't resonate with that at all. And neither should you either. If you didn't notice, I'd had a wardrobe change too. I was looking like a damn snow cone. None of my co-hosts told me that. Shame on you, Marissa.
Cone is an interesting one.
I was looking crazy, man. But in all seriousness, though, I come from a place where being stuck in the mud is not a thing. I grew up in the New York style media where if a coach sucked for 2 years, they were out there. It wasn't a question about it. And I grew up a Bengals fan, which is why it was so difficult for me being in New Jersey, seeing that process played out. But knowing that if the Knicks, the Yankees, right, the Rangers, the Giants, the Jets had seasons like that, they'd be on the out. And I understand the whole loyalty thing, but there's a thought process amongst a lot of people in the fan base that things won't happen. Here's what I want to talk about. We're going to talk about the offseason assessment. The bye week assessment of the team right now. But why is that the thought? I don't believe that Zach Taylor has the same leash that a Marvin Lewis had. Let's start there. I think there was some fundamental changes Marvin Lewis implemented in being so close to Mike Brown and being the one coach that Mike Brown actually hired that saw success. People forget Marvin Lewis was the most successful coach that Mike Brown hired. So, of course, it was going to be a little more difficult to part ways with him. But the Bengals have so much coming up. The new stadium lease. They've got Joe Burrow's contract coming into play soon. They've got Jamar Chase's contract needing to be figured out here soon. If you ask me, I think those are a lot of reasons for the organization to change their stripes, so to speak. Mike Brown turns 90 soon. And we saw this crop, this core that everybody was so excited about not fulfill what the destiny was in winning a championship. T. Higgins is in all likelihood out of here after this year. We don't know what happens with Trey Hendrickson, even though he's under contract for another year. There was that contract dispute in the offseason with the team. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot that puts the head coach, that puts the front office front and center now. I don't believe that because Zach Taylor helped lead the Bengals to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, that's going to give him this ultimate job security.
Can we? I want to touch on this
Yeah.
because this is an argument I hear
Yeah.
constantly,
Yeah.
and it goes back to the offense is scoring points, so
Mhm.
it can't be Zach Taylor, right?
Right.
And they went to the Super Bowl with
Mhm.
Zach Taylor. That offense that year was Joe Burrow dance around in the pocket, do
Mhm.
Houdini magic, fuck it, Jamar's down there somewhere
Yep.
year, right?
Yep.
Like that was their offense. It was not. It was Jamar Chase breaking screens and slants and taking them to the house and chucking them downfield. Like it was not a beautifully designed offense. And I want to give Zach Taylor credit because I think there are better designs in the offense currently. but he has not gotten better, I think, at being consistently right with his play call timing and being consistent with the play design, and also just being aggressive in the right spots and being willing to like call plays to throw past the sticks in key situations and not continue to do the poorly executed reverses and screens and swing passes and all this stuff that's well short of the sticks, like, and just getting conservative in moments like the Lions when they were up 40 on the Jaguars, 4th and 2 in the end zone. Did they kick the field goal? No, they fucking went for it. And every
Those
single
good
one of those
habits.
players is bought in. Every single one of those guys is on the same page. It is an entirely different mentality and energy in that building. And they've been consistently bad with the slow starts, with the short yardage situations. And so when it all comes together, I can't go, oh, they went to a Super Bowl with Zach Taylor as the head coach. And yeah, he did build a good culture here around Joe Burrow in the first couple of years. And yes, they did find success, but we have to be able to separate things from, hey, yeah, they scored 30 points, but if 80% of these yards came from Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase doing things after the catch, scrambling outside of structure, are you doing your job?
Right.
Are you doing your job when it comes to, again, you want to talk about the culture? Okay, well, we've got a culture of starting slow.
Right.
We got a culture of playing soft.
Right.
We got a culture of being scared in big moments. That's what the culture is right now. And people are frustrated with the culture.
Right.
Like that's just the fact of the matter right now.
I think that when we're having this conversation, you know, I think I think we all need to open our mind to the possibility that this was a healthy Joe Burrow. This is an MVP level Joe Burrow. This is an MVP level Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
This is a defensive player of the year level type player in Trey Hendrickson.
People are saying Joe Burrow should be look, I'm not saying Joe Burrow didn't make miss throws or make mistakes, right? But he's playing like the number one quarterback in the NFL right now. How much better do you want him to be than number one? Because when we ask Joe Burrow to be better, can he make literally every throw? Sure, if that's the fucking standard we're going to give him. But how about instead of Joe Burrow being number one and being more number oneer, the quarterback or the freaking coach, instead of being the 15th best coach, be's the 9th best coach? How about the guards, instead of being the last bottom 10 guards, are top 30 guards? Again, I'm not asking for the world, but we're asking Joe Burrow to, instead of being the most elite, to be a leader, instead of asking all these piss poor guys who are not playing well to play average or slightly below average. Like, it fucking blows my mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. You know, I just want to say this. There was a letter. I'm trying to remember when he came out with it. It was in 2021. Mike Brown came out with a letter in support for Zach Taylor and talking about why he was remaining steadfast that he could be the guy moving forward. And you see with a lot of organizations, it'll be very interesting to me in the coming weeks, because if the Bengals want to calm the talk around Zach Taylor,
win football games.
If the Bengals want to calm the talk around Zach Taylor, all Mike Brown has to do is release a letter saying, although the season hasn't produced the results that we wanted, we believe in head coach Zach Taylor, and we're excited for him to be the coach of the future to lead us to a championship. The Bengals very easily could cancel this conversation, this talk, but they're not doing it. At 4-7 with a healthy Joe Burrow, they're not doing it. You know, I believe that the family thought that this year was going to be a special year.
Yeah.
I think the family thought that this year was going to be the special year. You remember when we were talking in the offseason about how explosive this offense was going to be and how explosive this team looked? I don't know. I feel that Zach Taylor's seat could be a lot hotter than what people are expecting. I think the fact that they've allocated so much money towards a Joe Burrow and they have a Jamar Chase contract coming up, and they hear the way Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase are now speaking, or they're seeing the way it's becoming unraveled on the sidelines. I think that speaks to a lot of what the future could look like for a Zach Taylor. I think that maybe we're seeing right before our very own eyes why the guy hasn't been in a stable situation since he entered the league. Why he hasn't had a job for long outside of the quarterback's coach for the Rams. And he didn't even have that long. My thought process is I think that there's a world 100% where Zach Taylor's not the head coach of the Bengals because the expectation was so much higher. And I think when you have shows like ours, and there are so many amazing Bengal content creators out here, right? Let me just say that. So many amazing Bengal content creators out there where you can get so much of your information from. But I think when everybody has the same resounding message that something has to give, that we're tired of the same old mantra. I feel like the fan base, the organization, I think the Bengals are in a place of where you need healing. I think this team needs a little bit of healing right now. I think that the Bengals work so hard, right? I feel like the Bengals work so hard to gain the trust of the fan base back. And then you have a head coach who, after going 4-7, says in the media, post-game press conference, I believe we're still a playoff team. That's what he says. And then you have your quarterback, when asked to echo the same sentiment, you know what he said? Hope. I hope so. You got Jamar Chase. I'm not the play caller. I'm a player. As Zach. For me, let me just be clear when I say this. I have no issue with Zach Taylor as the person. But I clearly can look at it and say that there is a ceiling that this team has reached, right? With Zach Taylor as the head coach. And I think everybody wanted to believe so much in Zach Taylor. Everybody wanted to believe that Zach Taylor was a great offensive play caller. And I will say this, to me, Dan Pitcher is a better offensive coordinator than Brian Callahan. The way he's able to utilize the receivers and move Jamar Chase around, I think that's not talked about enough. I believe in Dan Pitcher. I like Dan Pitcher as an offensive play caller, and I think there's a reason why the Bengals offense is having success. But I want to be very, very clear. You look at it, there were some fundamental issues that took place from the offseason. I guess I can come out and say this now, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse or be a dick in any way, shape, or form, so I hope I don't come off this way. I never looked at Cam Taylor-Britt as a cornerback one. I never viewed him as a cornerback one. I thought he was a guy that, I think he could be a cornerback too. I think that's fine.
Some people after last season were like, "Oh, he's going to take the step to All Pro."
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I was like, I still don't know if I can consider him the corner one who can cover your wide receiver one, no problem.
Yeah,
like that's your guy you match up with.
But I think you can only coach who you're given, right?
Yeah.
Who you're allowed.
If you're getting Zach Carter and Jackson Carman, it's going to be tough.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll say this: I think that when I look at it, I think that this conversation that we're having is probably a similar conversation the Bengals are probably having with themselves.
I hope so.
These next few weeks are so critical, so important for the future of a Zach Taylor. And there's a philosophy of why I feel so strongly that Bill Belichick could potentially be in play if the Bengals were to move on from a Zach Taylor. But I want to be very, very clear when I say this, guys. And I know a lot of the fan base, I have a lot of respect for y'all. Hopefully y'all have a lot of respect for me. And I know my opinion matters to some. And I don't want y'all thinking I'm being emotional when I say this to my co-host too. I don't believe in Zach Taylor as the head coach of the Bengals. I want to be very clear when I say that. I do not believe Zach Taylor can lead the Bengals to a championship. And when I say to lead to a championship, I mean winning a championship. I think that they have gone as far as they probably can under him as the head coach. And I've never said that. I've beat around the bush. I've speculated maybe. I flirted with the idea. I don't believe it. I can't, it's hard under this structure, but maybe he will get an opportunity to prove himself somewhere else at some point.
I think it's important to remember too, that just because you're a good person doesn't mean you're doesn't always mean you're great at your job.
Yeah.
And even if you are good at your job, it doesn't mean you're the right fit for where you land. Right.
100%.
Like you can end up at different companies and you can go your separate ways after, finding out things don't work out the best because you're not able to find success or you don't have the environment you need. Maybe Zach Taylor is a good head coach who just needs more resources to be able to compensate for, for the deficiencies that he might have as a coach or as a play caller.
But can I go a step further with you?
Yeah.
I don't believe in Duke Tobin and his staff either. It's very simple for me to move on from a Duke Tobin without making him leave the organization. He doesn't have the general manager title. All you can do is give somebody the general manager title, and that's a quick fix. For me, if the Bengals are serious about winning a championship with Joe Burrow and with Jamar Chase, this is the most critical offseason for them. And sure, the Bengals can go on a run and win a bunch of games at the end of the season and then shit the bed in the playoffs.
Mhm.
Is that enough to tell you guys that, hey, you know what, with a last place schedule, we were able to get this done? To me, it's not.
No.
I think if the Bengals are serious about winning a championship and bringing a championship to the city, how they handle this offseason is going to be so critical to their fan base. You got fans saying that they're canceling their season tickets. You got people saying they're not going to show up. I think that there's a reason why a lot of people have the same sentiment when it comes to this team right now. You know, when we looked at the season in totality, we expected a whole lot more. Can I just calm the waters on something too? I'm not the big Ben Johnson guy that everybody else is. I like him as an offensive play caller, but it's dicey for me personally. I think that what this team needs more than anything is somebody that has been around the block, somebody that has the experience. And I understand he's the new next hot offensive play caller, all that good stuff. I get that.
Are you saying just for the Bengals or in general?
Just, I mean, for the Bengals per
Okay.
se. I think maybe he can go somewhere else and be a great head coach.
Okay.
I just think what the Bengals need right now is experience at the head coaching spot. Somebody who knows what they're doing. And it doesn't have to be the prettiest thing. I feel like Joe Burrow is the one quarterback. You remember when Andy Dalton was here, we were like, hey, we want an offensive-minded head coach to work with Andy Dalton so that way we don't have to worry about the offensive play caller leaving out the door and restarting. Joe Burrow, to me, strikes me as the quarterback that can work with whoever the offensive coordinator is for the most part, within reason. I don't mean just a shit play caller, but within reason. I think you could work with whoever, but I feel like getting a guy in here that has the experience, or even maybe as a, situational management is such a big part of it for me, especially when it comes to situational coaching. That is the margin of, are you going to be a great coach or are you going to be coach? I don't know. I just think that I look at it and I say, I don't know how you can sell your fan base, how you can sell the team, the players on bringing Zach Taylor back if you miss the playoffs after Joe Burrow had the season he had. That's where I'm at with the situation. As far as the assessment comes for it being the bye week, it's very simple. The Bengals need more pressure on the defensive side of the ball, which side they started to get in that Chargers game with Joseph Ossai, right? They need consistency. But consistency is crazy to ask for when you have two of the most inconsistent defensive. We have one of the most inconsistent defensive backs in the National Football League, right? Whether that be Geno Stone or whether that be Cam Taylor-Britt now in place. Your fix for losing DJ Turner for what looks like maybe the entire season was claiming Marco Wilson off of waivers. That was your fix. And I get it. We're at a point now where you can only play with what you got. It's a shit show out there. I get it. But Marco Wilson's, I don't know if I need to tell you, but Marco Wilson's not saving the day. He's not. No. Consistency is going to be a huge factor in it. And to me, and Jimmy, I know you were at the game live. You watched it in person. I'll say this. I think Lou is a good defensive coordinator because to me, you don't go from being so poor in the first half, making wholesale changes in the defense, finding a way to learn how to tackle. And it's like, it was vice versa. It was reversed the week before against the Ravens. If you guys could do us a huge favor, we got over 145 people in the comment section. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel as well. Turn on post notifications. We greatly appreciate you guys being here. But to me, I see a team right now that is uninspired, unmotivated, and dejected. That's what I see right now when I see this Bengals team. Fights on the sideline, players slapping the coach's hand down. That's not being talked about enough. That's a lack of respect.
Mm-hmm.
The nice guy politician jig is up. It's over with. What now? Logan, what are your thoughts?
Talking about just the whole bye week and everything in general, like one of the things that's been kind of more frustrating with me is, this. Let's look at this Cam Taylor-Britt situation. We all know how bad up and down Cam Taylor-Britt has been, so everybody points to him, and we've taken him out of games. We've put him back in games. We've benched him completely. He came back in the game because of injury. Why isn't that same mindset used for every other defensive player that's been the same way, if not worse than him?
Yep.
I know he's a corner, so you see it, and it just feels way more important. But Sheldon Rankins has arguably been worse than Cam Taylor-Britt, and that says a whole lot because we all know how bad Cam Taylor-Britt has been. Geno Stone has not been great.
Yeah, Tommy Anderson can't get on the field
That's what
just
I'm
to
saying.
see.
That's what I'm saying. Like Von Bell is whatever, but he's not good, but he's just not as bad as the people around him anymore. That doesn't make Von Bell good. There's just so many other people that, aren't necessarily deserving of their opportunities out there. And there's people that deserve more opportunities to play and to continue to show that they can play. But it's only Cam Taylor-Britt being treated like he's the only one that's out there making mistakes.
Being held accountable.
Yeah, and that's what bothers me about it. Because like I said, we all love Sam Hubbard. He has been what he has been. He doesn't deserve to be out there as much. I just said Sheldon Rankins doesn't deserve to be out there as much. Von Bell doesn't deserve to be out there. Geno Stone doesn't deserve to be out there. The linebackers suck sometimes, but it's only one person that's really being held to that standard. Even on the offensive side of the ball, the guards have been terrible. Offensive line's really hard to change. Not really sure you can do that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it only feels like one person is truly being held accountable. That's just weird to me. There are so many people that are playing bad on defense.
Yes.
And it's just weird.
And to your point, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
We keep talking about this. I keep talking about the slap.
Yeah.
The last and I love what my guy Benjamin Harrison, who always DMs me almost every single day on Instagram. Appreciate you, brother. He says the last coach that got pushed got let go. And that was against Vontaze Burfict. That was Vontaze Burfict who did that, who was always also on his way out. You're talking about one of the elite players on this team, one of the best players in the National Football League, the league leader in sacks. And the Bengals defense was somehow even mid-level. He'd probably be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Right? That was him that did that. That was Trey Hendricks is usually he's a hothead sometimes.
Yeah.
But he never goes to that length.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's a clear lack of respect. I don't care what field you're in. I've managed a lot of places, and I've seen employees lash out towards employers or managers, and I've seen the disrespect. And usually, what that spells is once you get to a level of disrespect, it's over with. One or two things are going to happen: that person's out the door, or you're out the door as a leader. It's almost like if you're a teacher and you don't have a handle on your classroom. And one child does something crazy, and then the next child, a bunch of children start doing crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. To me, I don't feel the players necessarily respect Zach Taylor. Jamar Chase would never come out and say the things the way he's speaking almost, right? If there was such a level of respect, you can't be friends and also trying to be a leader. There has to be a divide somewhere. And to me, I think that's why it's hard for me to see this team go through rough patches and then think that guy, who clearly they don't have a level of respect for, can pull them out of it. At some point, those guys are going to say, yeah, shut the fuck up. We're not listening to you. We don't believe what you're saying. It doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. To me, this spells, I hope the Bengals are paying attention very closely. That's what I'll say. I hope they're paying attention very closely. It's hard to come. Once you lose the locker room, once you lose leaders, it's hard to come back from that. Could you imagine, Logan, somebody smacking me at TWSN?
No.
Could you imagine someone disrespecting me at TWSN and me being like,
no way.
Yep, that's fine. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
I said, no, you're too far away.
It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Right? It has to be a level of respect.
Yep.
And everyone's saying Zach will be back. Stop with that narrative. Stop with that narrative. Even if you believe it, don't say it.
Please.
Keep pushing the agenda forward. If this team falls flat on their face, you guys hold more power than you give yourselves credit for.
Yeah.
Speak out. We talked about championship. There were people making plans for New Orleans at the beginning of the season. Not no more. Will it win against the Pittsburgh Steelers or against Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys or Brian Callahan's Tennessee Titans? Will that do it for you? Will that get you excited? Will that get you back on the train? Listen, as a business owner, it is my job to look at everything on a broader scale. It is my job as well for talking sports to look at everything on a larger scale.
Have to.
To me, this Zach Taylor marriage with the Bengals is on a rocky ship right now. And let me be clear, too. This isn't the Bengals that were led by Andy Dalton. This is probably going to be one of the most seeked after jobs if it becomes available. People said, oh, Bill Belichick wouldn't want to come here. Why not? Why not? And we could name any coach in there. Why not, though? This is a team that has been to the Super Bowl. that has an MVP level quarterback, that has a generational talent at wide receiver, an elite defensive end, and Trey Hendricks, what coach would not want to come here? What coach would not want to come here? And everybody likes to bring up his age. You let me know when age has stopped a coach before. That doesn't matter. Pete Carroll's one of the oldest coaches in the National Football League. Still winning. People bring up the fact that, he would want control. Where does that narrative come from? Oh, well, he wanted it in New England. Yeah, he was on the job for 20 plus years. He saw everything. He knew how it operated. He didn't come in with all that autonomy. I just think that when we look at it, the Bengals fans, hear me out. This is me talking directly to Bengals fans. You need to realize that this is a really sought after organization. This a team at this point. This is a team that probably could have their pick of the litter at who they would want to be the head coach of this team. And it's because of people like Joe Burrow. It's because of people like Jamar Chase. It's because of the culture shift that has taken place within the players in the locker room. This is a team that invested so much in the new locker room, that invested so much in their quarterback, that's going to invest so much in their star wide receiver. What makes you think that they wouldn't invest in the head coach? It's not too often the greatest head coach of all time becomes available, who has so much respect for Paul Brown. It's not too often you're in a situation that Cincinnati's in right now. Win now is so important. It's so important. I just want everyone thinking of the same wavelength. I want everybody thinking on the same wavelength. Don't say can't, won't happen. Same people that said the Bengals would never make a trade, albeit it was a seventh round pick for a running back. They made a trade. Stripes can change, but the pressure starts with people like platforms like us on this show. Shit, I'm not going to wait for Pat McAfee to do it. I'm not going to wait for Stephen A. Smith to yell into a mic. This is me right here. Moved my life up to Cincinnati to help be a part of the change in new media in Cincinnati. It needs to get better. This shit is not acceptable. That's just my thought process. You're entitled to your opinions, and I respect everybody's opinion. But listen to me, Bengals fans. No other team settles. No other team settles. Do not be indoctrinated by this city, by this organization, and think that they're not going to change. They will change. If you speak out loud enough and you're consistent, they will change. Because if not, it'll hurt their pockets. If not, star quarterbacks will leave. If not, star wide receivers will leave. You have more power than you think. You want to know why? I seen it happen in New York. I saw the New York Giants fan base turn on a coach in Tom Coughlin, who won 2 Super Bowls with them. Seen it with my own eyes. I seen the Jets turn on Rex Ryan for bringing them back-to-back AFC championships with Mark Sanchez. I've seen it with my own eyes. Teams will change, but you got to be consistent. Realize your voice matters. Pound the table for wanting more. When they come out with those memos and say, we want you to pack the jungle, we want you to rep who they, we want you to be well, we want change. We want better. Don't settle. Trust me. I might be new to Cincinnati. I've been here for 2 years now, going on 3. But trust me. Trust me. Don't settle. Do not think that this is okay. Fight for it. Don't settle. Don't keep spending your money. You want change? You want a championship level team? Let your voice be heard on social media. Trust me, they pay attention on social media. It's the reason why they went through these wholesale changes, right? To be back connected with their fan base. This is a pivotal offseason for you. This is a pivotal offseason for you. And I don't mean the Bengals, just the Bengals. I mean you guys in the fan base. Your voice matters. They saw the signs being put up week after week after week after week. They saw it. They saw the empty seats. 4-7 with your quarterback playing on an MVP level. Hear me out. We know Joe Burrow deserves better. We know Jamar Chase deserves better. We know the team deserves better, but make sure you guys don't fucking forget the people who live in Cincinnati year-round, who support this team year-round, who pack the stadiums 6 months out of the year, who buy the merchandise. Remember, you deserve better too. And that's all I'm here to tell you. You deserve better too. Your voice matters. Stop settling. Stop thinking the Browns won't change or the Blackburns won't change. They won't have to change if you keep saying they won't change. But we'll keep buying the tickets. We'll keep buying the merch. Want better. Strive for more. The fans control a lot more than they think. And if you think Zach Taylor is the issue, let the voice be heard. If you think Duke Tobin is the issue, let the voice be heard. You guys created organizational changes over time. Look what you did. You fought for a ring of honor for this team, and they gave it to you. They gave it to you. Practice bubble. They gave it to you. What makes you think they won't give you a new coach or even give somebody the general manager title? Trust me. Stop closing off your voice for this team. You hold a lot more power. Remember, this is a football family. Their money is made through what, guys? Football. And if you talk to them in the pockets, they'll listen. Just my thoughts. If you could do me a favor, guys, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Well, let's ask this question, guys. Will the Bengals make changes? I've been talking a lot. I want to hear from Daniel. I want to hear from Evan. I want to hear from Logan. But Daniel Flores, do you think the Bengals are going to make changes in the offseason? What do you think that looks like?
Yeah. So I think that this conversation is, once again, this is totally dependent on how you finish the season. And here's my two thought process, right? The way that they make change and the way that it's open and making changes, first off, is you have to miss the playoffs. And this is looking at it from a negative standpoint, right? If they make the playoffs, I struggle to see how they make significant changes. Unless obviously you go and you get obliterated. But I think if you make the playoffs, here's the two scenarios. You make the playoffs, you would have had to win at least 5 of your next 6 games and potentially even all 6 of your next 6. So you head into the playoffs with serious momentum, with the locker room back in right spirits, with a confident Joe Burrow, and I wouldn't see them making changes. If you miss the playoffs, I'd be very confident they make changes. And the reason why I say that once again is I look at it, you got to take it game by game, but I look at this upcoming game, the Pittsburgh Steelers game. This is massive. We've talked about this on the show. They're normally great out of bye weeks. They're 3-1, coming out of the bye weeks in the past 4 seasons with the healthy Joe Burrow. But this year could be different, right? It's normally you got the strong culture. This is where you start to see serious cracks. And I keep going back to everything we brought up about Trey Hendrickson on the sideline, about Jamar Chase in the post-game press conference, about Joe Burrow looking dejected. The locker room speaks for everybody. And I'm very confident, especially if they go out and lose this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, then you could see some serious changes. I don't think they do in-season change, but I think that's what it's going to take. If you miss the playoffs with the healthy Joe Burrow, with the healthy Jamar Chase, I really struggle to see how this organization can look at themselves, say, we're going to run it right back without making changes. And if we talk about what changes, right, is there a world where they go and say, all right, let's try firing Lou and firing Frank Pollock? I don't think that that's the massive change that this organization needs, because I don't think that if you were to fire Lou and fire Frank Pollock, that you would have turned the season around and made the playoffs. I don't think that that's the root cause of this. So I think if they miss the playoffs, that means over the next 6 weeks, we would see a lot more of the Jamar Chase press conference. We would see a lot more of the fights on the sideline. I think that's what we'll see if they go out and don't go on a run. That's looking at it from a negative perspective. So it really depends on how they finish off the season. But like I said, I think if they miss the playoffs, there's a strong chance that I think it's, and it sucks to say, but I think it's Zach. Zach is the one that would go. I just struggle to see them say, hey, we're going to try to make a change at Lou, and that'll fix everything. I think Jamar Chase saying Zach's name out there, I think that it would be Zach to go.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you, and we've talked a lot about it today. And we talk about the slow starts, we talk about the continued lack of aggressiveness or the awkward timing of aggressiveness, and just so many patterns and habits that Zach and the Bengals and the coaching staff has established over his tenure here. But like one thing he has done well is come out of the bye weeks and win. That's Daniel just said 3 of the last 4 years. That's a good thing. That is a very good habit to be in. But now if you start to take your one good thing and you lose against the Steelers, now one of the best things you have going for you is now turning in the wrong direction. And then it's like, okay, what's going to keep coming next? We're already struggling. We got this. You're usually always good here. Now you lose. And it's like, oh, crap. And then everything starts to get amplified more and more and more again. It's to me, it's absolutely it'd be absolutely inexcusable not to make a change if you miss playoffs.
Yes.
It's point blank simple. I don't care if you lose to the Steelers and then win the rest of the games and miss it by one game. That doesn't hide the fact how terrible you've been all year long. That doesn't hide the fact any of the issues. It just means your three best players that haven't been able to win you games are probably going to find ways to win your games, because the defense isn't automatically going to magically be shutting people out down the stretch. The offensive line isn't going to turn into some crazy, amazing pass blocking, run blocking team down the stretch. The team is who they are, but thankfully we have three very good players, and I don't want to say just three, but you all know how the roster is, that can win you football games, and they're going to win you some football games on the stretch. Point blank, period. It's as simple as that. But at the end of the day, if you do not make the playoffs with, again, MVP, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year caliber players, all fully healthy, any other organization, that person is fired. That person would probably already be fired right now at this point in time if they lose to the Steelers. Like, it'd be inexcusable not to just clean house if that's the case. There's nothing that you can sell me on firing Lou or firing Pollock or just teetering with the staff. No, the team would need a complete and utter fresh start, top to bottom.
Yeah.
I want to pose a question. The first half of the Chargers game was obviously very putrid, right? A lot of issues that led to that disaster of a half. The second half, they look much better. Did what they did in the second half change the issues that led to their first half deficit? Did them coming back and into the game change any of those issues that led to that moment? No. And the exact same thing will be with the playoffs, where I would like them to make the playoffs. I would like them to be competitive. I would like them to find success in the playoffs. I would be very concerned that a run like that, let's say they win 5 of their last 6, right? And the Broncos and Chargers drop some games, and then the Colts do the same, and then you find a way to sneak in. That is by luck. That is by fortune. That is not by skill. That is not another feather in the cap of Zach Taylor and the coaching staff. And I'm afraid that it may be reframed as such. And I want to say the same way that coming back in that second half of the Chargers game does not erase what led you to be there in the first place.
Right.
Very much the same for, hey, even if you win 4 out of the last 6, 5 out of the last 6, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs just barely. That doesn't matter, because all of the issues that have led to this team between roster construction, lack of accountability, lack of execution, performance, player development, roster development, game management, like every single one of those things that needs improvement still needs improvement, whether or not you manage to make it or not. So that's the big thing that it sticks out to me that I want to really drive home, because I would hate for anyone's takeaway from this season to be like, man, they were just unlucky. They were just unlucky, like a couple Evan McPherson field goals. And it's like, yeah, but it's Evan McPherson field goals. And it's, yeah, he could have made another field goal or 2 here and there. But you know what else? Like 3 players could have tackled Tylan Wallace or just shoved him a little bit harder out of bounds. Like, there's so many instances in a football game that we can point to and go, well, if that was completely different, like, yeah, absolutely. If you didn't throw that pick 6, I'm sure the score would have been a lot better for you. Like, we can't just ignore the problems because something starts to trend in the right direction. The problem is still there. But yeah, I do think changes are coming. The level of disaster that the rest of the season is, I think, determines that, to where if you win 1, maybe 2 of these games, that's going to be a tough sale for Zach Taylor. But if you can manage to continue having the offense scoring points, and maybe you're not having your players slapping your hands away, or kind of for lack of a better word, kind of subtext and using you to shoot and shade your way during interviews. Like, yeah, okay, you quell all that. The offense is good. Like, he can probably just say, hey, the defense was terrible. We love Lou. He did a great job, but let's just change the defensive coordinator. That's all we need. Once we do that, like, I've got the offense already great. Like, look at the offense. So we can just change the defense. If we go any type of improvement, we're gravy. And that's my fear, is that Lou is going to get scapegoated, because I think there are other issues, from what Duke Tobin has done to lack of development from position coaches like Marion Hobby. I think there's a organizational failure for where the defense is, but I feel like Lou may get kind of the finger pointed at him as that guy right there. If we just clean house and just switch it out a little bit, like, we're going to be good.
But
and
you know-
hitting refresh on this defense does not solve any fucking problems.
Right.
Any at all.
Right. You know, one thing I realized though, something that's interesting. I listen to what the players say, not so much the coach speak, right? But the players say, and Lou was getting a lot of love from the defense players. Even Trey Henderson says we have a great defensive coordinator. The tone is drastically different on Zach though. It's, I don't know, ask Zach. I hope so. Like, and I think a lot of it is it's leadership. It's a leadership issue. It's definitely a leadership issue. And for me, I don't know, man. I have a hard time seeing Zach surviving this, because he is the head man in charge. You can't talk. You got to ask yourself, and this is the conversation you got to have. Can the Bengals come back next year? Let's say they don't make the playoffs this year, which it looks like that potentially. Can the Bengals come back next year with a renewed focus with Zach still leading the charge? Will the leaders of this team still believe in Zach Taylor? Ask yourself that honestly. Before you comment in the group chat, take a moment, pause. Ask yourself that. Now, a question I'm going to follow that up with. We've all worked. We've all had jobs. Right? We've all worked. We've all had jobs. Imagine working at a retail store and you have a manager who's in charge of obviously getting the sales up. Right? You're working at that job and you guys have a horrendous month. Horrendous 2 months back to back. What does that district manager come in and say? Does that district manager come in and say, hey, we still believe in you to get our store back to elite level? Or will they swap changes? Will they swap general manager? Will they bring somebody else in to be the head man? I can tell you right now, in any world, in any field, you're getting replaced. Especially if the expectation is that the season was supposed to be great. Joe Burrow playing at the level he's playing at. Still baffled that we lost to the Patriots. Still doesn't make any sense to me. These are questions that we have to, and you know, it's not just about this year, guys and girls. Everybody's watching. It's not just about this year. The slow starts have been a repeated thing. The only difference is this year, you don't have the team pulling you out of that hole. This has been the MO. The Bengals just found a way to rattle off wins at the end. They always look like a different team after the playoffs. But I'm going to tell you right now, we've said for the last couple of weeks, this game is the most pivotal. This game is the most important. Let me be clear when I say this. This game will break Zach Taylor's tenure as the Bengals coach if they lose to the Steelers. It will break his tenure as the Bengals head coach. You don't come back after this. If you lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers coming back after the bye week, at home, the team is holding on by a thread right now. I don't even know if I call it a thread.
Yeah.
They're holding on. They're holding on by a thread. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they lose to the Steelers in this game, not that it's supposed to be some new renewed focus thing. I think if you lose to the Steelers, shit, I could see them losing to the Cowboys. I could see Brian Callahan beating the Bengals. I could see it. Because I think things will look that bad. I think things will get that bad. Honest opinion. And that sucks to say. Somebody asked, I want to get some of the questions here now too.
Yeah.
If you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Betsy Bootcamp says they will not fire Zach. Don't you understand? Betsy, I understand. I understand that you have been indoctrinated into your old ways of thinking, the Bengals' old way of thinking, and you're at a point where you believe that this team won't make changes. I look at it from a broader perspective. I look at how much they try to connect with their fan base and do so many different things with the money allocated to Joe Burrow. It's not like Andy Dalton was here. with the money allocated to Joe Burrow and all that kind of stuff like that, I feel like you have to make changes at that point. With the new stadium, I feel like you have to make changes at that point. Even no matter how much you don't want to. I don't believe he has the same autonomy that Marvin Lewis had. I know for a fact that Mike Brown came in and fired a bunch of his assistant coaches after year one, and he wasn't happy about that. I know that for a fact. That there was a little bit of a shouting match. I know that for a fact. So you have to ask yourself, he's not in a situation in which, hey, I can make certain calls. This team, the expectation was much higher. The expectation was much higher, and the Bengals have shut the bed this season. Somebody said, Malik, are you saying they would fire Zach in season? No, I don't think they would fire any coach in season. But what I am saying is I think that the off season, I feel like conversations will need to be had. And I also think I also think Zach would stick by his guys too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Zach and Lou have been friends for very long. I don't think Zach would throw Lou under the bus. I think the organization might try to throw Lou under the bus. I don't think Zach would. I think Zach will be very similar to the Dougie P situation where he's so tied to his offensive play caller, Press Taylor, which might be his undoing. The thing is, I don't think Lou's a bad defensive coordinator. I just think he's been given a shit hand personally.
Taylor's must be a great hang.
They must be. They must be, man. But no, I don't think Zach is in danger of getting fired in midseason. But I will tell you, you will start to see more leaks, more cracks. You will start to see people more unhappy. Joe Burrow's facial expression says it all. And you don't think the family's paying attention to their franchise quarterback, who's usually the most ultra confident guy, being frustrated on the sideline, no longer giving CEO speak in the media? Yeah, you don't think they're paying attention to that? It's very clear Joe Burrow is unhappy with Zach Taylor as the head coach. It's very clear. Very clear. But I also think winning cures everything. And if you're not winning, well, how do you go into the season saying, hey, Joe, we know we sucked that last year. We know you played at an MVP level, but believe in Zach. Believe in the staff. How do you get him to believe in that? That's BS. Daniel, let's get to some of these questions.
Yeah. So we had a question. It was from a little while ago, but somebody was asking about Jamar Chase. Do you think that there's a world where, because I mean, everybody's talking about it. Do you think there's a world where Jamar Chase doesn't want to re-sign with the Bengals?
I think Joe Burrow being here is a big anchor point. If he was not, then I might call it like a 60-40 he stays and then 40% chance he leaves. But like with Joe Burrow being here, I think before he left Joe and Joe let that happen, I think he probably put the pressure on the organization to make a change.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's my opinion.
No, for sure.
I think that's great. I think that's a great take by you, by the way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's the same thing. Like Jamar Chase, if you ask yourself for Jamar, what does he get to gain out of going somewhere else?
Nothing.
Like you got to restart with the new QB. It's like you've got the
and you're probably going to a worse team. Like
Yes.
you're going
Worst team,
to
worst
the
quarterback,
Titans, you're going to the Bears, you're going to the Raiders, you're going to one of those teams, right? Like maybe you find the perfect situation, like where they can clear some cap space and cut some people and find a way to give you some void years and do funny money. But yeah,
wouldn't make sense.
Right. I think he'd rather play with his best friend, and it's worked out well for both of them. And I think they can continue to make money and find success here.
So we had two questions, one from Landon Van Steen, one from Garrett Jellison about the video that somebody took, the box, the owners. Did you guys make anything of that? How they were, or what's your guys' thoughts on that?
Let me be very clear about something real quick. Marvin Lewis ran the organization. He was the team president. He helped restore Mike Brown's respectability within the city. He was the CEO of this team, right? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase run this building. I'm just being honest with y'all. If they start, it's funny. We said this literally weeks ago, Ev. Literally, we said if the Bengals won't feel they need to make a change unless you get two people start changing their tune a little bit, and it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Those are franchise cornerstone players that they're not going to move off of. It's like Cam Jordan being pissed for the Saints. That spoke volumes. Why do you think they moved off of Dennis Allen that quickly? And Dennis Allen's with the team for so long. Voices matter. Franchise corner, because you don't want to fuck up their future and their potential, because those are the guys that are bringing you forward. But to your point about the ownership box thing, I don't read too much into that.
No.
They're probably pissed.
Yeah.
Just lost to the Chargers.
Dude, yeah. I say at the end of the day, I think there's no strong opinion that should be made about the video at all whatsoever. Everybody's gonna react to things differently. One's a 90-year-old man up there. Like people are
I
gonna.
don't think
react
he's like
differently.
content with losing.
That's just how he
right?
is.
Yeah.
He's about to turn 90
He's
years
just
old. He could be sitting there in his mind, just man, I'm gonna kill somebody. You know what I mean? But we don't know. He just looks. That's how he's gonna look, and that's how a younger person's gonna look. That's just exactly how it is.
Well, Betsy Bootcamp, you said then why didn't they play Jamar Chase if voices matter? Well, let's take a little trip down real quick. The whole break with Jamar Chase's thing was the Bengals approached him and said that they was going to give him a contract extension. That did not take place. They obviously could not agree on a number. They wanted to extend him probably at their price. Jamar Chase is having an historic season. Versus Jamar Chase is going to get paid by the Bengals regardless of which way you look at it. That doesn't mean that his voice does not matter. They will literally, if they couldn't come to agreement with Jamar Chase, they would franchise tag Jamar Chase every single year. Like Jamar Chase is going nowhere. The Bengals are controlling that situation for as long as they humanly possibly can. That has no bearing on what happens with the head coach. Nobody foresaw this shit show breaking down the way it has. This has been abysmal. Like usually you come into the season as a team and you know that you might have a rough patches here or there. The overall sentiment from this team was, damn, this is going to be a championship level team this year. Oh, we're talking about Mike Gesicki as just a added piece that's going to be good for the offense. This team is going to be on fire. But then you had hold-ins, you had players not showing, you had so much stuff going on. And who does that reflect back on to some degree? Well, the front office and the head coach. You're the lead man. You talk about how great your culture is. Culture. And you have your star players sitting out. You have your star players not being there. But guess what? That sucks for Zach because that's not a Zach thing. That's a front office thing. But it falls back on him. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, we had a question that some people were talking about from Jacqueline. This hypothetical, but would you guys rather this year go to the Super Bowl but no organizational changes, or miss the playoffs and there's organizational changes? So basically saying, would you rather go on a big run, make the Super Bowl?
Let's go. I'm here.
Hang on, make the Super
Let's do
Bowl
it.
and have a chance to play the game, or make the Super Bowl and lose. Because if you're just losing, then no, I would say no. I don't want another 3 to 5 years of Zach Taylor because they went to a Super Bowl again. Because that would be a miraculous run. Like that would be a Trent Dilfer, Joe Flacco level, like Nick Foles level playoff run, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of like not quarterback play, but like in terms of like absurdity and unlikeliness to happen, right? But yeah, you don't want another 3 to 5 years of all the problems you've had.
And you know, there's a question here. It says, we have a question. Deja Vu made up a great point. And this is why I think it's so critical. You can see if the team is just losing, getting blown out. You can look at it and say, oh, we have a lack of talent too, to a degree. But you're losing 1 score margin games. 6 of them, I believe, this season so far. That's situational coaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's a direct look at coaching. So 100% you have to look at it and say, but I think the fact that Joe Burrow is getting paid what he's getting paid, knowing Jamar Chase's contract's up, that has to enhance the possibility of change.
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that also when everybody talks about the organization, I feel like the organization's never had to shell out the money they will have for both Burrow and Chase, which will make it a lot more likely that they would make change because you're not just forking out that money for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
People are asking about the coaching staff. Would you guys ever like make a change? We kind of touched on this, but make a change on just like a defense coordinator like Lou, or would it have to be the head coach and everybody else?
No, I think I would want wholesale changes. I feel like that would be scapegoatish personally. And I don't think that would solve the issues. I still believe they would start the season slow. I still believe like we have how many years of this now to see this?
Yeah. I got a question for you.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
And for everybody here, because I'd be curious to hear you guys' answers. You can only change one. Is it defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, head coach, GM?
Head coach.
So you're
no.
He threw the
The Bengals don't have a GM. The Bengals don't have a GM.
Okay,
Bengals
director
don't have a
of
GM.
player personnel, whatever.
Director. I mean, yes. I mean,
because that changes how you approach things.
yeah.
Because now you're asking, yeah, maybe you keep Zach Taylor, but maybe you get him some better players. Maybe you spend a little bit more. Maybe you
Yes.
draft differently.
Yes, I would. If that was the option, I would change. Fuck, that's tough.
I think it's
But
got to
the
be.
This is
issue
a good
with that
question. This is a
too,
good question.
the issue
Yes.
with that, and this is something I'd be curious, like, what is the locker room feeling? Is the locker room even thinking about Duke Tobin, or is like the
no.
coaching staff? I feel like the coach, like Lou and them, could be thinking like a Duke Tobin, like a Dan
Bro,
Fincher.
they made a Super Bowl with Duke
But
Tobin
if
as
you have
GM.
that, but if you have that Duke Tobin switch out, does Jesse Bates get his contract? Does DJ Reader stick around?
No, because that's the Blackburn thing. That's them negotiating that. And you're not replacing the
Yeah.
owners. I've seen them make a Super Bowl with Duke. But what I have seen at 5 years, I'm sorry, 5 years with Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor to some degree, even though there's some injuries in there. I think I'm
It is
changing-
heavy GM in the comments.
Yeah, I know what people
Everybody
say.
thinks,
I think Zach Taylor, only reason why, because I think that you're having a fundamental, I think you're having a psychological impact on the players. personally.
yes.
I think they think he's soft. I think they think that I feel like there's no respect there. And I feel like once you have respect, it fractures the relationship.
Let's be honest too. It's kind of a loaded. It's more head coach and director of play, GM, whatever you want to say,
Mhm.
right? Because obviously, if you fire the head coach, you're
Yeah.
probably changing DC, OC, everybody else too.
Yeah. So we got a couple questions. Yeah, everybody. We appreciate everybody commenting. A lot of people are saying GM. People are asking about Frank Pollock. We had let me try to find the exact question. But what's your guys' thoughts on Frank Pollock? Like the run game, the offensive line. Is it a Frank Pollock issue? What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, they're putting up points. I mean, like they're still they have one of the best scoring offenses in football.
But
It ain't because of low.
But
no, it's not.
the run
But yeah.
game coordination.
Yes.
that's what
the
it is.
issue.
That's the issue.
But
right?
is that making such a wholesale change? Right.
Here's the other
Yeah.
problem though. So it's not just that.
Yeah.
The big problem I have is how many years has he been here now? 4, 5, 2021,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he came back.
Every single year, you remember going into the first playoff game with the Titans when they made that Super Bowl run. They were talking about how the Titans were number one in simulated pressures, right?
Yeah.
And twists and stunts, and that was going to be a problem, and it was. And guess what? It's been a problem every fucking year since.
Yeah.
It's on everyone's scouting report
Yeah.
every fucking week, and they still can't do it. And either everyone is so dumb they can't understand how to communicate and pass things off well, or there's a fundamental flaw in how they're being taught.
You
to
want to know what I
execute
think?
that.
You want to know what I think? Bro,
Because you've had different players. You've had different schemes.
We have Bill Lazor at head coach. I think that. I think we have Bill. You remember when Bill Lazor was here? That motherfucker would not refuse to run the ball. And it wasn't just in Cincinnati. It was in Philly. He was pass.
Mhm.
I feel like you have Bill Lazor at head coach. That's what I think. And I think that no matter where Zach went, I think his team would take on the identity of refusing to run the football. That's what I think.
I just think I'm looking at the success rate. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the yards per carry. I'm looking at the EPA per rush attempt. It's just all been now.
Because
Again,
under-
the first
wait,
5 weeks of the season, first
Yeah.
4 weeks of the
Looks
season,
good.
they were great. They were
Well,
top
remember-
5 in success rate. They were there. But
Remember
it's
under
just-
Marvin Lewis, with Marvin Lewis with lesser players on the offensive line, and Frank Pollock was the offensive line coach, they were having one hell of a year. Like Joe Mixon was over the hill that his running.
How
back
many years
was.
ago was that?
I get that. But what I'm saying is I think that they're the same reason why they moved off of Frank Pollock the first time. Zach never wanted Frank Pollock as the offensive line coach. I think that there is fundamental differences in the run game. And I think that's why you have issues. But you also have a head coach that looks at it, I have a superstar quarterback. I want to pass, and I have these star receivers. So you feel the need that you want to feed them. But Zach always has gone away from the run game, even when he was the interim offensive play caller in Miami. He's always been pass. But again, he's a quarterback. So he probably thinks with a quarterback mentality. And it's like, I think that hurt. But I understand. We're agreeing.
Yeah.
I
I don't want to get in that trap the
Yeah.
same way we don't want
Yeah.
to say Zach Taylor made it to a
Mhm.
Super Bowl. I don't want to say Frank Pollock was good
Yeah.
for him 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
No.
like, right.
I think you need to change. I think you rip it up. That's what I was saying. I think
That's
if
the thing
want
is
this
you
to look
have to hit
different-
refresh. You have
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
new blood in there
Yeah.
because you can't keep having elements of what hasn't worked
Right.
just
Yeah.
sitting around. You have to just rip it all out, foundation, tear it down to the
Yeah.
studs, and rebuild differently.
I mean, you've drafted players, you've signed players, you've brought in other players, you've tried new things, you've tried different schemes, you've tried it all. at
But
this
here's
point.
the one thing
Yeah.
I'll say, guys, and I love that we're having this conversation. By the way,
Mhm.
the same issue that I think that Lou's dealing with, I think Frank's dealing with in some degree. And I don't mean from a tackle perspective. I mean from a guard perspective. The Bengals are never going to invest huge money on the guard position. I already see Bengals fans already clamoring saying, "Hey, the Bengals, let's go after Trey Smith in the offseason." Let me tell you right now, just to save you, it ain't happening.
No.
They're not going to allocate huge resources to the guard position. Should they? Yes. But again, it's one of those slow changing processes. They believe in certain positions. They believe that certain positions should be valued at top dollar, like tackle, like corner, which is probably shocking because they didn't go after a corner. But they believe that's what they believe. They believe it's like the Bengals almost go off to their skill position. And me and Zim were live and we had a conversation about this. And we said, hey, who, and you look at the Bengals history, they've had elite players at the tackle position. Elite players, right? Anthony Munoz, Willie Anderson, Andrew Whitworth. So in their minds, it's, oh, well, we can have elite tackles. And they've gotten by from having these elite players at the tackle spot. Right. Now,
interior rusher was not the devastating thing at that point
right,
that it is nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
So now I think that sometimes they're fundamentally behind with how they view things,
yeah.
Which is why you see over time people realize, holy shit, if you have an elite guard, it could change a lot. Yes, because how many elite rushers are there in the National Football League? There's a couple. Mm-hmm. How many disruptors are in the interior? There's so many. There's so many guys. Hell, there's teams that are taking elite rushers on the edge and moving them inside now because they realize, holy shit, there are teams out there that have mismatches at the tackle position. You have elite tackles. Well, how do we allow our guy to get more pressure? Well, let's move them on the inside. They have a weak link on the interior. Do you mind rushing inside? Nope. If you can rush a quarterback from the interior, you disrupt entire offense's game plan. Bengals, that's what teams are doing.
Yep.
That's what teams are doing. The Bengals will literally go after an elite player and say, hey, you know what? We'll offer you $7 million a year, $7.5 million a year to come be we take it? No. Oh, well, we tried. That's not getting it done. Well, you get to play with Joe Burrow. That's not getting it done.
And to be fair to Frank Pollock, I know for a fact that Zach Taylor will call run plays that divert, whichever one you want to use in that instance. Frank Pollock's run game coordination plan. I know that Zach will make calls that Frank is unhappy with at times. And I know they've butted heads on that a little bit here and there. So to Frank's credit, it's not like Zach Taylor is out there calling exactly the run game coordination that he wants. But again, it goes back to the lack of development with all of the Christian Westermans, the Hakeem Adenijis, the Deontay Smiths, the everybody. And again, like, yeah, Jackson Carman, you're probably just shit out of luck there, right? But like, was he the one who pounded the table for Russell Bodine or Billy Price?
Billy Price. I believe it was Billy Price, yeah.
Right. And it's just like, when you get your guys in there,
wanted Frank right now.
We all wanted Frank right now, didn't we?
And then they fucking traded back for Cordy Glenn.
But yeah, that's the kind of thing where it's like, hey, I know things aren't perfect for you the same way with Zach Taylor. Like, hey, I know you get bad injuries sometimes. I know that, there's drop passes or, things that you want back, but like the issues are still the issues. Like you still have other ways, like just with the quarterback, like when, he has a terrible offense, you can't evaluate the quarterback at all. And it's like, well, his wide receivers may be shit, but I can still like watch how he throws the football and watch the ball to the point it gets to the wide receiver, right? Like, sure, they might not be able to catch it or get open, but I can still evaluate the quarterback. Sure, the result might always be there for Frank Pollock or Zach Taylor, but you can still look at different elements to evaluate how they're doing. It doesn't mean you could just wash everything away because, something wasn't perfect for them in like mint lab experimental conditions. Like you're not going to get that in real life.
So we had a couple questions. Somebody was asking if you guys, or Tom Jones was saying, if you were hired as the GM, what exactly would you guys do?
Evan.
God, that's
a loaded question.
Well, it's just we could probably have a whole show just based on like, hey, what would be your plan as a GM? And maybe that's something we can do in the off season as we're building up to the draft. But just long story short, like Malik talked about, reevaluate your positions. We know they value certain positions and they generally value things like edge rusher, tackle, wide receiver, quarterback. Great. But there is value in other positions, and valuing your players and other players properly, giving more guaranteed money or just being to offer a more modern contract structure to free agents to entice them to come here even more. Making more competitive offers for the proven talent that has been on our team and not being so worried about, I gotta come out with an A+ deal because if I get a B deal instead for the team, then I failed, right? Like we're really nickel and diming over $1 million or $2 million. Like I know it's not my money. I'm not spending it, but if you're hiring me as the GM and saying, spend these resources, that's what I'm doing. I I'm going to try and get an offensive-minded head coach. Absolutely. I want someone who's going to be paired with Joe Burrow, but I'm going to try and find somebody who has proven that they can scheme guys open reliably, that they can design things well, that the concepts mesh well together, and that they have good control of game flow and time and clock management. And if they don't, that's perfectly okay if they are being willing to be open-minded and say, hey, I will hire a guy to help me with that. I will delegate that to this guy on the staff. And that guy's going to be my guy who taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, just a reminder, this is coming up. You want to be thinking about this. Like, if this is 4th down, you can do this. Or if you first down, you go ahead and do your thing. Like, I want these various things because I want someone who's going to be open-minded. I want someone who's going to be forward-thinking. I want someone who's going to be able to look at themselves and be real about where they have shortcomings and have plans about how they are going to address those shortcomings and not just say it's going to be fine.
Right.
It's going to be fine.
Right. Anything else, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, we could go a couple more questions. We had a question about Jermaine Burton. Some people were saying it feels like Jermaine Burton is giving up. Seems like his confidence is shaking. What do you guys' thoughts on how Jermaine Burton's played?
He just looks it just looks weird out there. I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's just he's not overly familiar with what he's supposed to be doing. Maybe it's just the connection thing with Joe. But something's weird about it. I don't know if it's necessarily something major or if it's just a 3rd round rookie developing in the NFL. But something just does feel off about it. I'm not like saying it's a him problem or what it is, but something is just very clearly kind of strange.
When you have defenses, right, and you're playing slow, you're out of position, what do? You simplify things, right? You try and play fast. I think maybe there is some of that going on with Jermaine Burton right now, where maybe he is a little overwhelmed with what is being put on his plate right now and hasn't been putting in the work as much in the behind the scenes aspects of things. And if you're out there running routes at 80% instead of 100%, you're going to look slow. You're going to look lazy. You're going to look lackadaisical if you're not confident in what you're doing. And I think we've seen that in the miscues between him and Joe Burrow, who's usually lights out with his ball placement. So I think there's a little bit of that. And also maybe just, like not running routes 100% when you don't think the ball might be coming your way, which, I mean, we've seen from guys like Yoshivas too. Like there's been a couple times where he's been surprised that the ball was even going to come his way or pulled up a little bit on a route. So it's just, yeah, you wish Burton was more of a spark because God, Trent Irwin on the field is scaring nobody. But yeah, they need Burton to be better. They need him to be more of a threat. They need Yoshivas to be more productive. They need more from everybody not named Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, or Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, it's going to listen. This is, I think that I've said this before a couple weeks back. I think that the splash we're expecting Jermaine Burton to have will happen in year 2. I just think that this year's kind of is what it is. And I think that it was hurt. He got hurt a little bit by not playing a little earlier in the season. But a lot of it was on Jermaine Burton too. I'll be honest with you, just the way you approach the game, being consistent and being a pro's pro. So there's that. Look, that's all the questions that we're going to take for today, but I promised a big announcement, so I'll tell you guys right now. Here at TWSN, we try to reinvent the wheel. We try to do stuff special for you guys. I don't know what the specific rules are going to be for this giveaway that we're going to do is, but and that'll come. But I at least wanted to come to you and let you know what the giveaway would be. But we try to do things different here at TWS, and we really try to include the fan base because I believe without y'all, right, not just Bengals fans, but just NFL fans in general, we are nothing. You guys give us a platform. You read our content. So I got a bright idea with Daniel to be put our heads together, and we're trying to figure out what we wanted to do. So this year, we're going to select 2 people to give Super Bowl tickets to.
Woo!
We will pay for your flight, and we will also pay for your ticket. You can handle the hotel stuff. But we are going to pick 2 people to give Super Bowl tickets to. Don't know what the requirements are going to look like in order to enter in for this chance to win. It's undoubtedly going to have to do with something with following me and following TWSN. But we want to do something a little, I guess, change it up a little bit and make the ways to enter to be a little bit different. So just want to let y'all know we're going to pick 2 people to be selected to go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans this year on TWSN's dime. We just appreciate the support that you guys have given us on this change. Obviously, we embarked on change to, TWSN is doing some really, really big things. We're here, we're a staple in the community. We plan to do some really, really awesome stuff. And we just want to thank y'all again for supporting the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show each and every single week, and supporting State of the Jungle each and every single Wednesday. We really, really do appreciate y'all, because without y'all, we are nothing. You guys help making our content tick. We appreciate you so much. Marissa's going to clip this, going to put it on Twitter as well, so that way you guys know what's coming down the pipeline. We appreciate you. Hopefully things get better in Cincinnati sooner rather than later. I certainly had my plans for the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl this year. Don't look like that's going to happen, but we'll continue to use our platform as a means to promote change, positive change, and want more for this team, for this city, and for you all. So with that being said, until next time on State of the Jungle, we won't be live for the morning show tomorrow. We'll be back Friday.